down on Main Street. So if any crime occurred in Richland County, murder, armed robbery, burglary, on down to DUI, drugs, anything like that, it depends, where your case goes depends on where you're arrested. So if you're arrested in Richland County, you're going to come to the Richland County Solicitor's Office. If you're arrested in Lexington County, you're going to go to see Solicitor Donnie Myers in Lexington County. And depending on the severity of the crime, if it's something that carries less than a year, you'll go to magistrate court, which is low-level court. If it's something that carries more than a year, you go to big boy court, which is called General Sessions. And I worked in General Sessions for 3.5 years. And when I ran for county council, I was actually still a prosecutor. And when I was elected, I had to leave before I was sworn in because being an elected official, I couldn't work for an elected official because it's dual office holder. And also there was some conflicts of interest because county council, Richland County Council funds the Richland County Solicitor, funds the Richland County Sheriff, and the magistrate. So it was an inherent conflict there as well. And don't tell anyone, but I was also ready to go in private practice. So.
Can't blame you. You've had experience in different areas. Well, welcome to our class. The
floor is yours. Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me. I'll start off. You all are very lucky to have such enthusiastic and dynamic teachers as Ms. Payne. You can feel her energy just when she comes into the office to greet me. You can feel her energy. She wanted me to come in and share, I guess, a little bit of my story. Realize at some point you guys will have some questions for me. I'll start off by just I guess tell me a little bit about me. I was actually raised in South Florida. I was raised by my mom, a single parent. I didn't grow up knowing my father. My mom had him when she was young, but I had my grandfather who was kind of like my dad. So I was raised by my mom and my grandparents. My mom had 2 sisters and a brother, and so they were kind of, they always joked that I had 3 or 4 moms. But I was raised in South Florida. I was actually born in West Virginia, Charleston, West Virginia. Sometimes I say, oh, I was born in Charleston, people assume South Carolina. But I was actually born in Charleston, West Virginia, which is the capital. And when I was 6, I moved to South Florida with my mom and her family. And I started playing tennis. And my mom played tennis in high school, and I had a lot of energy when I was younger, so she'd take me to the parks and start playing tennis with me. Turned out I was pretty good. So I grew up playing junior tennis, went to academies actually with Andy Roddick, Marty Fish, and a bunch of others. Played junior tennis all through with them. When we were about 17, they took off, and so they went pro, and I ended up getting a tennis scholarship to the University of South Carolina. And I enrolled in fall of 1999. It's about August 1999. Do we have any tennis players in here? Any tennis players? No. All right, well, we'll work on that. But I enrolled at South Carolina in the fall of 1999. Played all the way through 2003 for a couple years there. My sophomore through my senior year, I played #1 singles. And my senior year, I got to the round of 16 of the NCAA Division I singles tournament. It's almost like basketball. You pick the top 64. The NCAA picks the top 64 players. I got to the round of 16, which qualified me to be a first-team All-American in tennis. A question I always get is, well, why didn't you try to play professional? In tennis, to make money, you have to be top 100 in the world. And that means if you're a new guy coming out, you have to replace who's already top 100 in the world. And if you think about it in football terms, I mean, there's probably close to 100 people on one NFL team. So imagine how hard it would be drafted if there was only one NFL football team and players coming out of college had to break onto that team, replace the Tom Brady's. I mean, Cam Newton wouldn't play over Tom Brady. And so that's why it's so difficult to make money in tennis. And, you know, I had wins in college against players that would go on to do well and broke in the top 100. But I decided to just go on and try to pursue a higher education. I went to law school. I went to the University of South Carolina. And actually enrolled in law school. No one in my family was a lawyer or anything like that, so I wasn't like, oh, I was going to do what my grandfather did and his grandfather did. I wanted to go to law school, and I like trying to help people, and I thought that was a profession. I like interacting with people as well, so I didn't want to be a transactional attorney, somebody who sits behind a desk. There's all kinds of different types of attorneys. So I like interacting with people, and I like competition, I guess, from being in tennis. And so I knew if I did practice law, I'd want to be a trial attorney. However, all through law school, I wanted to be an athletic director. And so I actually, for a little bit, my third year, I was working as a graduate intern for the USC Athletic Department of compliance of the NCAA rules, making sure that athletes don't break rules. Cam Newton. But all those things, and it's sort of like the NCAA has a set of rules that are like laws. And so you interpret it, and sometimes you write briefs to say, did this player break a rule or did he not break a rule? And there's gray area. You debate the facts. Did he or did he not? And so I felt like a law degree would actually help me with that. Long story short, ended up getting a job offer from then Solicitor Barney Gazay, working in Richland County Solicitor's office, and I ended up accepting it. And I worked there for 3.5 years. Never helped out on a political campaign. Never thought that I'd go into politics. No one in my family was ever involved in politics. But being in the solicitor's office, it's kind of a political office. You meet a lot of different state house representatives and state senators who are attorneys and things of that nature. So it kind of thrusts you into the political scene because you're working for someone who is an elected official. Then I started going to neighborhood meetings on behalf of Solicitor Gazay, speaking about things that are going on in our office. That kind of put me more into the political scene. And I started to see certain things that I would like to change. And started asking myself, well, why not me? You know, why don't I give it a shot? And ended up deciding I'd run for Richland County Council. And County Council and City Council, Columbia City Council, I can tell you has a very large impact on our lives. It's really down to the local level, and there's only 11 of us. If you're in the State House, you know, there's 100 and however many State House representatives, and you're only one vote. But on Richland County Council or Lexington County Council, you're one of 11 votes. And so if you're trying to push something, all you have to do is get a majority, get 5 other people, and you can make it happen. So I decided to run for County Council. You know, anything I do, I try to work hard at and do it to the best of my ability. And that's something I did with tennis, where I try to outwork people on the court when we're playing, and I prepared harder than anybody else. And so I knew that if I was going to do this, I was going to do it right, and I was going to work hard. And so I ended up walking our council district twice. And you pull the list of all the registered voters, and you gear towards the primary that you're going to be in. So if you're going to be in the Democratic primary, you want to know who's going to vote in the Democratic primary. And if you're going to vote in the Republican primary, and you're running in the Republican primary, you want to know that, because you got to win the primary to get to the general. So I pulled a list of anyone who had ever voted in a Democratic primary for that council race in like the last couple of elections, and ended up knocking on 8,500 doors personally over like a 10-month span. And that was a very interesting experience. And one of the things I learned right before I knocked on my first door, I remember thinking, this is going to be really awkward. Like, I'm going to have my flyers, and you walk up and you knock on the door, right? And so you don't, it's Saturday morning, and to give you an idea, a lot of people say, or you hear from people's campaigns, they'll say, I knocked on 5,000 doors, I knocked on 3,000 doors. What they don't tell you is, they went out with 10 other people and combed the neighborhood. But they count the doors that the other volunteers helped knock on, right? I knocked on 8,500 doors by myself, personally, because I wanted to meet the voters myself and not send somebody else on my behalf. So when I say roughly 8,500 doors, I did that. But,